December 18th, 1944. Belgium, Ardennes Forest. The crossroads was nothing special. Two dirt roads intersecting in the middle of frozen farmland. But Staff Sergeant Lafayette Pool knew it was everything. Behind him, 2 miles south, American supply lines, thousands of trucks, fuel depots, ammunition, food, everything the American advance needed. Ahead of him, 2 miles north, German armor, panzers, pushing south through the Ardennes, part of Hitler's last desperate offensive, the Battle of the Bulge, and Pool's M4 Sherman tank, call sign "In the Mood," was the only thing standing between them. One tank, at a crossroads. That's all the American command could spare. Everything else was committed elsewhere, fighting the main German thrust. Pool's orders were simple. Hold that crossroads. Don't let German armor through. Reinforcements coming. Hold until relieved. How long? Unknown. Could be 2 hours. Could be 8. Pool looked at his crew. Driver, Private Raymond Schultz. Gunner, Corporal James Fox. Loader, Private William Hudson. Assistant driver, bow gunner, Private David Rodriguez. 4 men plus Pool. 5 total. They'd been together since Normandy, fought through France, through Belgium. 125 days of combat. Never lost a man. But Pool knew their luck wouldn't hold forever. At 0847 hours, Pool's radio crackled. All units, German armor spotted, moving south. Estimated 12 panzers, supporting infantry, heading toward your sector. Pool keyed the mic. Copy, we see them. He raised his binoculars. Through the morning mist, he could see movement. Gray shapes emerging from the tree line. German tanks, Panzerfuß, maybe a Panther. They were 2 miles north, and closing. Pool knew the math. 12 Panzers versus 1 Sherman. His tank had a 75mm gun. Good, but not great against German armor, especially from the front. The Panther's 75mm gun was better. Longer, higher velocity, could penetrate a Sherman from 2,000 yards. Pool's gun needed 800 yards or less to penetrate a Panther frontally. And if he couldn't penetrate, he'd have to flank, get side shots. But there was no room to maneuver here, just the crossroads and open fields. Pool made his decision. Listen up, Germans coming. At least 12 tanks. We hold this position until relieved. No retreat, no surrender. We hold. His crew didn't question. They trusted Pool. He'd kept them alive for 125 days. They'd follow him for one more. What Pool didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that in 30 minutes, his crew would be dead. And he'd be alone. One man. One tank. Against a German armored column. For 8 hours. Lafayette Pool was born in 1919 in Texas. Small town. Farming family. His father owned a tractor repair shop. Pool grew up around engines. Learned to fix anything mechanical. By age 15, he could tear down an engine and rebuild it blindfolded. When the war started, Pool enlisted in the Army in 1942. Told the recruiter, "I want to work with machines, tanks if possible." The Army tested him. Mechanical aptitude, superior. Leadership potential, high. They sent him to Fort Knox. Tank training. Pool excelled. Not because he was aggressive, but because he understood tanks. How they moved, how they fought, how to keep them running. By 1943, Pool was a tank commander, assigned to the 3rd Armored Division. Spearhead, the division that would lead the American advance across Europe. Pool's tank was an M4 Sherman, nicknamed "In the Mood," after the Glenn Miller song. 30 tons, 75mm main gun, 2 30 caliber machine guns, 1 50 caliber machine gun, crew of 5. The Sherman wasn't the best tank in the war. German tanks had better armor, better guns. But the Sherman was reliable, easy to repair, and America could build them by the thousands. Pool understood his tank's limitations. He knew he couldn't trade shots with a Panther at range, so he fought smart. Used terrain, flanked when possible, took side shots, avoided frontal engagements. By December 1944, Pool had been in combat for 125 days. Since D-Day, his record, 258 enemy vehicles destroyed. Not all tanks, some trucks, half-tracks, artillery pieces, but at least 12 confirmed tank kills. He'd been hit multiple times, repaired his tank in the field, kept fighting. His crew trusted him completely. Schultz, the driver, had been with Pool since Normandy. Said once, "Sergeant Pool has a sixth sense. He knows where the enemy is before they know we're there." Fox, the gunner, was the best shot of the battalion, could hit a target at 1 to 200 yards. First round. Hudson, the loader, was fast, could load a 75mm shell in 4 seconds. Rodriguez, the assistant driver, manned the bow machine gun, covered the front arc. Together, they were one of the most effective tank crews in the 3rd Armored. But effectiveness doesn't guarantee survival. On December 18th, their luck was about to run out. The German offensive in the Ardennes, later called the Battle of the Bulge, was Hitler's last gamble. December 16th, 1944, 3 German armies launched a massive surprise attack through the Ardennes forest, the same route they'd used in 1940 to defeat France. The goal: split the Allied armies, capture the port of Antwerp, cut off supplies, force a negotiated peace. The Germans committed everything. 3 armies, over 400,000 men, 400 tanks and assault guns. The attack achieved complete surprise. American lines collapsed. Thousands of soldiers were overrun. Entire units surrendered. By December 18th, German armor had penetrated 30 miles into American lines. Panzers were racing south, toward American supply depots. If they captured those supplies, especially fuel, the offensive might succeed. The German column approaching Pool's crossroads was Kampfgruppe Müller, Battle Group Müller, named after its commander, Oberstleutnant Hans Müller. 12 tanks, 8 Panzerforce, 3 Panthers, 1 Tigerwaffen, plus supporting infantry and half-tracks. Total, maybe 200 men. Müller's mission was simple: push south, reach the American supply depot at Verbemont, capture or destroy it. The crossroads where Pool waited was the only direct route. Müller knew American forces were scattered, disorganized. He didn't expect resistance, certainly not at an isolated crossroads. At 09:15 hours, Müller's lead Panzer IV crested a small rise. The commander raised his binoculars, scanned the crossroads ahead, and saw Pool's Sherman. 1 tank, alone, holed down behind a small berm, only the turret visible. The German commander smiled. 1 Sherman, against his entire column. This would be easy. He ordered his formation to deploy. 3 tanks advance, destroy the Sherman. Then the column continues. Simple. At 09:21 hours, 3 Panzer Force moved forward, spread out, approaching the crossroads from 3 angles. Standard tactics. 1 Sherman couldn't engage all 3 simultaneously. Pool saw them coming. "Gunner, target left Panzer, range 800, fire when ready." Fox trained the 75mm gun, checked his sight, on target. "Fire." Boom! The Sherman's 75mm roared. Recoil rocked the tank. The shell hit the Panzer IV on the turret front, penetrated. Explosion. The Panzer stopped. Smoke poured from the hatches. First kill, but the other 2 Panzers kept coming. "Target center Panzer. On target. Fire!" Boom! Hit, but no penetration. The shell bounced off the glacis plate. The Panzer returned fire. Crack! A 75mm German shell hit Pool's Sherman, Front glacis. Penetrated. The shell entered the driver's compartment. Exploded. Schultz, the driver, was killed instantly. Rodriguez, the bow gunner, died seconds later. The explosion was catastrophic. Fire erupted inside the tank. Pool felt the impact through the floor. Bail out. Bail out! Fox and Hudson, the gunner and loader, opened their hatches, scrambled out. But as Hudson climbed out, a German machine gun opened fire from the 3rd Panzer. Bullets stitched across the turret. Hudson was hit, fell back inside, dead. Fox made it out, dropped to the ground, started running toward cover. Another burst from the machine gun. Fox went down, didn't move. Pool was alone in the tank, fires burning in the driver's compartment, smoke filling the turret. His entire crew dead. Pool had seconds to decide. Bail out and live, or stay and die. He looked south, toward the American supply lines. 2 miles. If the Germans got through, thousands would die. Pool made his choice. He grabbed the fire extinguisher, fought the fires in the driver's compartment, got them under control, then climbed into the gunner's seat. If he was going to hold this position, he'd have to do it alone. Operating a Sherman tank normally requires 5 men. Driver controls movement, steers, shifts gears. Bow gunner operates front machine gun, assists driver. Gunner aims and fires main gun, operates coaxial machine gun. Loader loads main gun shells, passes ammunition. Commander directs the crew, spots targets, makes tactical decisions. Pool was now all 5, alone. He couldn't drive and gun simultaneously, so he made a decision. He'd fight stationary. From the commander's position he could. 1. Spot targets. Aim the main gun using the override controls. 3. Fire the gun. 4. Load new shells by climbing down into the turret. 5. Fire again. It would be slow, incredibly slow. A full crew could fire every 6 seconds. Pool, alone, would need maybe 30 seconds per shot. But it was his only option. At 09:28 hours, the 2 remaining Panzer Foos advanced. Pool tracked them through his sight, waited until they were 600 yards, aimed at the lead Panzer, fired, hit, penetrated the side armor. The Panzer erupted in flames. Crew bailed out. 2nd kill. But the 3rd Panzer was already firing. Crack. Another hit on Pool's tank. This one struck the turret ring, jammed the traverse mechanism. The turret couldn't rotate anymore. Pool was stuck, pointing in one direction. He could still elevate the gun, but he couldn't turn. The German Panzer realized this, started moving to Pool's flank, where Pool couldn't engage. But Pool had one more trick. He climbed down, into the driver's compartment. The fires were out, but Schultz's body was still there. Pool pulled him out, gently, laid him outside the tank, then climbed into the driver's seat, started the engine. The Sherman lurched forward. Pool drove blind. Couldn't see over the glacis plate from the driver's position, but he knew where the Panzer was. He pivoted the tank, rotated the hull to point the frozen turret at the enemy, then climbed back up, into the commander's position, aimed, fired, hit, 3rd kill. But Kampfgruppe Müller wasn't done. The lead elements had been stopped, but 9 more tanks were behind them, including the Panther and the Tiger. At 09:45 hours, Oberstleutnant Müller arrived at the front, surveyed the situation. 3 Panzer Foos destroyed, by 1 Sherman, still holding the crossroads. Müller was impressed, but also angry. 1 American tank was delaying his entire column. He ordered the Panther forward. "Destroy that Sherman. I don't care how. Just destroy it." The Panther 45 tons, 75mm long-barreled gun, frontal armor. Pool's Sherman couldn't penetrate, advanced. Pool saw it coming, knew he was outmatched. The Panther could kill him from 2,000 yards. He couldn't kill the Panther frontally at any range, but he could try to damage it, track it, disable it. Anything to slow the German advance. The Panther stopped at 200 yards. Fired. The shell hit Pool's Sherman on the lower glacis. Penetrated. Exploded in the ammunition storage. Catastrophic. The Sherman should have brewed up. Exploded. But Pool had only 12 shells left. Most of the ammunition was already expended. The explosion was contained. The tank didn't explode, but it was badly damaged. Smoke poured from the hatches. The Germans watched, waited for Pool to bail out. He didn't. For 30 minutes, Pool's Sherman sat smoking. The Germans assumed he was dead. The Panther moved forward, cautiously, to confirm the kill. At 900 yards, Pool's Sherman fired. One last shell, hit the Panther's track, broke it. The Panther stopped, immobilized, not destroyed, but stuck. Pool had no more ammunition for the main gun, all shells expended. But he still had the 50 caliber machine gun and the coaxial 30 caliber. He climbed to the commander's hatch, manned the 50 cal. German infantry was approaching, trying to cross the crossroads on foot. Pool opened fire. The 50 caliber roared. Heavy machine gun fire swept the crossroads. German soldiers dove for cover. Several didn't make it. Pool fired until the 50 cal ran dry, then switched to the coaxial 30 cal. But operating it meant going back inside the burning tank. He did. Climbed down. Manned the 30 cal. Fired at any movement. The Germans couldn't advance. One man, one damaged tank. Out of main gun ammunition, but still holding. At 10:45 hours, Miller was furious. His column had been stopped for over an hour by one tank, one man. He ordered artillery support. German 105mm howitzers set up 2 miles north. At 11:15 hours, they opened fire. Artillery shells rained down on the crossroads, explosions everywhere. Pool buttoned up inside his tank. Shells hit all around. One landed 10 feet away. The concussion knocked Pool unconscious. When he woke, his ears were ringing, blood running from his nose. But he was alive. The Sherman was still intact, damaged, battered, but still there. The artillery barrage lasted 20 minutes, then stopped. The Germans advanced again. Pool had one machine gun left, the coaxial 30 cal, maybe 200 rounds. He waited until the German infantry was close, 100 yards, then opened fire, controlled bursts, making every round count. The Germans went to ground, returned fire. Bullets pinged off Pool's tank, but they couldn't advance. At 1200 hours, 3 hours into the fight, Pool ran out of ammunition. All guns. Main gun, empty. 50 cal, empty. 30 cal, empty. He had nothing left to fight with, except the tank itself, and his will. He stayed in position. Turret pointed at the Germans, bluffing, making them think he could still fire. It worked. The Germans didn't know he was out of ammunition. They stayed back, cautious. At 12:45 hours, Pool heard engines. From the south, he looked through his periscope. American tanks, 4 Shermans, company reinforcements. Finally, they'd arrived. Pool climbed out of his tank, waved to the approaching Shermans. The lead tank commander saw him, stopped. "Sergeant Pool, you're alive?" "Barely." "How many tanks you got?" Pool gestured to his destroyed Sherman. "Just this one, and she's done." The commander looked at the battlefield. 3 destroyed Panzer force. one immobilized panther. German bodies near the crossroads. You did all this? Alone? My crew started it. I finished it. How long you been holding? Poole checked his watch. 4 hours, maybe closer to 5. The commander stared. 5 hours. 1 tank. Against a German column. Against part of it. Rest of them are still out there. Get in my tank. We'll finish this. Poole climbed aboard the lead Sherman. The 4 American tanks advanced, engaged the remaining German armor. The fight lasted another 3 hours. By 1700 hours, Kampfgruppe Müller had been stopped, forced to withdraw. Never reached the American supply depot. The crossroads was held. After the battle, American investigators surveyed the crossroads. Poole's Sherman, in the mood, was a wreck. 4 penetrating hits. Turret jammed. Engine damaged. Fires throughout. The investigators couldn't believe anyone had survived inside. They counted Poole's kills. 3 Panzer Force destroyed. 1 Panther immobilized. Approximately 30 German infantry killed or wounded. All by 1 man, in 1 tank, over 5 hours. The battalion commander, Colonel Richardson, asked to speak with Poole. Sergeant, I've read the after-action reports. You held that position alone, for 5 hours, after your crew was killed. Why didn't you withdraw? Poole thought about it. Sir, my orders were to hold until relieved. I held. You could have died. Yes, sir. But if I'd withdrawn, the Germans would have gotten through, reached our supply depot. A lot more men would have died. So you stayed? Yes, sir. Richardson shook his head. Sergeant Poole, I'm recommending you for the Medal of Honor. What you did today was beyond extraordinary. Poole looked uncomfortable. Sir, I lost my entire crew. Schultz, Rodriguez, Hudson, Fox. They were good men. I don't feel like a hero. You're alive because you fought smart. Your crew died because war is brutal. But you honored their sacrifice by continuing the fight. That's what makes you a hero. Poole never received the Medal of Honor. The recommendation was downgraded to a Silver Star. Administrative reasons. Bureaucracy. But everyone who fought at that crossroads knew what Poole had done. The record showed Staff Sergeant Lafayette Pool, 3rd Armored Division, December 18th, 1944. Held a critical crossroads alone for 5 hours. Destroyed 4 enemy tanks. Killed or wounded 30 enemy infantry. Prevented German breakthrough. Saved American supply lines. Poole was reassigned to a new tank. New crew. He continued fighting through January 1945. On January 13th, his new tank was hit by an anti-tank mine. Poole was wounded, severely, evacuated, sent home. His war was over. Final tally, 258 enemy vehicles destroyed, 12 tanks confirmed, 126 days of combat, 3 different tanks, 2 crews lost, and 1 5-hour stand that stopped a German armored column. Poole survived the war, returned to Texas, married, had children, ran a small business. Never talked much about the war. When asked about the crossroads fight, he'd say, I just did what needed to be done. Anyone else would have done the same. But they wouldn't have. Most men would have withdrawn, preserved their own lives. Poole stayed, fought alone, for 5 hours. Because the mission mattered more than his life. Lafayette Pool died in 1991, age 71. His obituary mentioned his business, his family, 1 paragraph about military service. But among tankers, especially in the 3rd Armored Division, his name is legend. The tank commander who fought alone for 5 hours, who held when he should have run, who stopped a German column with one tank. Today, the U.S. Army Armor School at Fort Moore teaches Pool's crossroads stand. It's a case study in 1. Individual courage under fire. 2. Tactical flexibility when crew is lost. 3. Mission focus over self-preservation. The instructors tell students, modern tanks are more advanced than Pool's Sherman. Better armor, better guns, better fire control. But the most important weapon in a tank isn't the gun. It's the commander. Pool proved that. When his crew died, he didn't quit. He adapted. Operated every position. Fought for 5 hours. Held the line. That's not about training. That's about character. About the refusal to give up when everything goes wrong. The Army also uses Pool's stand to teach solo vehicle operations. In modern combat, tanks can be hit. Crew can be killed. But if one person survives, the mission can continue. Pool demonstrated how. 1. Prioritize critical systems, gun over mobility. 2. Adapt to limitations, stationary defense. 3. Conserve ammunition, make every shot count. 4. Use psychological warfare, bluff when out of ammo. 5. Hold until relieved, mission over survival. Those 5 principles are now part of Army tank doctrine, directly from Pool's 5-hour stand. In 2019, a group of 3rd Armored Division veterans erected a memorial at Fort Moore, dedicated to all tankers who fought alone. Lafayette Pool's name is at the top. The plaque reads, "In honor of tankers who fought beyond the limits of their crew, who operated alone when others fell, who held their positions when retreat was easier." Lafayette Pool exemplified this spirit. December 18, 1944. 1 man, 1 tank, 5 hours. Against impossible odds, he held. That's what tankers do. Today, tank commanders in the U.S. Army train for scenarios where they must operate alone. Not because it's common, but because it's possible. At the Armor School, there's a training exercise called Pool's Stand. The scenario? Tank commander in simulator. Crew killed by simulated enemy fire. Commander must continue mission alone. Hold position for predetermined time. Against simulated enemy armor and infantry. Most trainees fail the first time. They panic. Try to do everything at once. Driving, gunning, loading, commanding. It is overwhelming. Then instructors show them the Pool method. Stop moving. You can't drive and gun alone. Choose the best defensive position. Prioritize main gun over everything. Take time between shots. Accuracy over speed. Use machine guns to suppress, conserve ammunition ruthlessly. Never abandon mission. When trainees apply these principles, success rate jumps to 70%. One instructor said, Pool didn't have a simulator. He had real enemy tanks, real shells, real death, and he figured it out in real time, under fire. With his crew dead around him, that's not just skill. That's mental toughness. That's what we're trying to teach. Modern tanks are far more advanced than Pool's Sherman. The M1 Abrams, 230 tons, 20mm smoothbore gun. Composite armor, digital fire control, thermal imaging, but the principles remain the same. A tank is only as good as its commander. In Iraq and Afghanistan, there were several instances of tank commanders fighting with reduced crews. Wounded members, equipment failures, isolated positions. Those commanders who succeeded all cited Pool's example. One tank commander, Captain Mike Irwin, Iraq 2004, said in an interview, "My gunner was wounded by an IED. My loader was treating him. I had to man the gun myself for 30 minutes. Engaged multiple targets. The whole time I kept thinking, Pool did this for 5 hours. Alone. I can do it for 30 minutes. That's Pool's legacy. Not just what he did, but what he inspired others to do. The knowledge that one person, in the right position, with the right mindset, can hold the line. Even when everything goes wrong. Even when the crew is gone. Even when survival seems impossible. You hold, because the mission matters, because others are counting on you, because that's what tankers do. There's a memorial in Belgium, near the crossroads where Pool fought. It's a small marker. Most people drive past without noticing. But every December 18th, a few people gather there. Veterans, historians, tank enthusiasts. They come to remember what happened there in 1944. The marker reads, "On this spot, December 18th, 1944, Staff Sergeant Lafayette G. Pool, 3rd Armored Division, held this crossroads alone for 5 hours. His crew had been killed. His tank was damaged. He was outnumbered and outgunned, but he did not withdraw. He held this position, destroyed 4 enemy tanks, stopped a German armored column, saved American supply lines. 1 man, 1 tank. 5 hours. This is what courage looks like." In 2014, 70 years after the battle, the last surviving member of Pool's original crew visited the memorial. Raymond Schultz's nephew. Schultz had died in the first German hit. The driver, he was 20 years old. His nephew stood at the memorial and said, "My uncle died here. He and the others started the fight. Pool finished it. I wish my uncle had survived. But I'm grateful that Pool made sure their sacrifice wasn't in vain. He could have run, could have saved himself, but he stayed. Fought for them, for the mission, for all of us. That's a real hero." Pool never considered himself a hero. In a 1985 interview, shortly before his health declined, someone asked him, "Sergeant Pool, you're famous among tankers. They call your crossroads stand legendary. How do you feel about that?" Pool smiled. "I don't think about it much. I did what I was trained to do. Hold the position. My crew died doing their duty. I stayed doing mine. Nothing legendary about duty. It's just duty. But you fought alone for 5 hours. I wasn't alone. Schultz was with me. Rodriguez, Hudson, Fox. They started that fight. I just finished it for them. They were the brave ones. They gave everything. I just had to be stubborn for a few more hours." What would you want people to remember about that day? Pool thought for a long time. Remember the crew. Remember that tanks don't fight. People do. And when those people are gone, the mission still matters. Someone has to carry it forward. That day, it was me. But it could have been anyone. That's what I want people to know. That when your moment comes, when everything goes wrong, when you're alone, when the odds are impossible, you don't give up. You adapt. You fight. You hold. Not because you're special, but because the mission is bigger than you. Because people are counting on you. Because that's what being a soldier means. You hold the line, no matter what. Lafayette Pool held the line at that crossroads in Belgium for 5 hours, alone, in a damaged tank, against a German armored column. He destroyed 4 enemy tanks, killed 30 enemy soldiers, stopped a breakthrough, saved thousands of American lives. Not because he had the best tank, not because he had a crew, but because he refused to quit. Refused to abandon his mission, refused to let his crew's sacrifice be meaningless. He was one man, in one tank, against impossible odds, and he held. That's the legacy of Lafayette Pool. That's what tankers remember. That's what soldiers aspire to. Not the glory, not the medals, but the commitment to hold the line, to finish the mission, to never give up. Even when you're alone. Even when the crew is gone. Even when survival seems impossible. You hold. Because that's what soldiers do. That's what Pool did. On December 18th, 1944. At a crossroads in Belgium. 1 man, 1 tank, 5 hours. Against a German column. He held. And because he held, thousands lived. That's courage. That's duty. That's Lafayette Pool. The tank commander who fought alone.